This is HighIntensityBusiness.com with Lawrence Neal, helping you achieve your health and fitness goals. Become a great personal trainer and build your high-intensity strength training business.
This episode is brought to you by ARX, the most innovative, efficient, and effective all-in-one exercise machines I have ever seen. I was really impressed with my ARX workout. The intensity and adaptive resistance was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I love how the machine enables you to increase the negative load to fatigue target muscles more quickly. And I love how the workouts are effortlessly quantified. The software tracks maximum force output, rate of work, total amount of work done, and more in front of you on screen, allowing you to compete with your previous performance to give you and your clients real-time motivation. The ARX uses a computer-controlled motor to give you the exact amount of resistance your clients need 100% of the time. This means that the resistance can never become dangerous, is intuitive and simple to use, and can provide you with all of the results you and your clients are looking for in a fraction of the time. ARX is highly effective and efficient in delivering all of the benefits of exercise, including increased strength, muscle mass, cardiovascular conditioning, bone mineral density, and injury recovery. As well as being utilized by many high-intensity trainers to deliver highly effective and efficient workouts to their clients, ARX comes highly recommended by world-class trainers and brands, including Bulletproof, Tony Robbins, and Ben Greenfield Fitness. To find out more about ARX and get $500 off install when you place an order, please go to arxfit.com and mention HIB, that's High Intensity Business, in the How Did You Hear About Us field. So again, to get $500 off install when you place an order, head on over to arxfit.com and enter HIB in the How Did You Hear About Us field. Hey, it's Lawrence here, bringing you another episode on High Intensity Business. This is another episode I actually published before the pandemic, but I feel like the timing is much better now in terms of publishing it when studios are either starting to reopen or have been open for a few weeks, and hopefully you are the latter. I think you're going to absolutely love this episode. Kristin is my guest, Kristin Rowell. She is a client of Discover Strengths, and she has been a client for them for over 13 years. If you don't know who Discover Strength are, they are one of the leaders in the high-intensity training, personal training space, a very fast-growing business. I often have Luke Carlson on the podcast. He is the CEO of Discover Strength. And this is just a fascinating interview. If you're interested in really understanding your target market. Now, most of you target and serve busy professionals, and Kristin used to be a very high-powered lawyer. So what you get from this episode is you really get inside the mind of how she thinks about her investment in personal training. And I think that's going to really help you in terms of your own targeting and marketing strategy and tactics for your own business. I mean, just one quick highlight. She has been with DS for over 13 years. She is responsible for generating, I want to say 110 or 120 referrals for Discover Strength. And when you think that actually that's more than the total number of clients you might need to run a profitable studio coming from one person, that is truly significant and is a real testament to the power of this business when it comes to generating word of mouth referral to actually grow the business. And that is what DS have done so well. So I think you're going to absolutely love this in terms of just understanding your target market better, since the majority of you serve the busy professional. And they're such a great fit for a high intensity training business. But further to that, Kristin is a very fascinating individual. She is in incredible shape and she is an absolute athlete. She has competed in over, I think it's 25 marathons. Her best time is 3 hours 19, which is incredible. She's competed in bodybuilding competitions. She's been on stage. She went for a serious leg break and had an incredible comeback. So her story is just fascinating from a fitness perspective. And then lastly, we talk about how she left the well-paid, prestigious career of being a lawyer to moving into the nutrition and health space, where she's now coaching people using things like the ketogenic diet to help them transform their own health. So fascinating in terms of learning about her own experience starting her own business in that space, which is obviously quite removed from what she was doing before. So I think you're going to love this episode. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe on your favorite platform. And please head over to highintensitybusiness.com/tactics to get free resources to help you grow and improve your high intensity training business. And without any further ado, please enjoy my podcast with Kristin Rowell. Lawrence Neal here, and welcome back to highintensitybusiness.com. This is episode 278. Today's guest is Kristin Rowell. Kristin is a nutritional therapy practitioner, lawyer, self-experimenter, and proud low-carb ketogenic athlete. As a former high-stress business litigator turned NTP, Kristin largely serves what she calls the old her, high-achieving, stressed out, adrenally depleted, cortisol spiked professional who strongly desires to prioritize their health and wellness, but can't seem to get out of their own way. Kristin is an IPE natural professional bodybuilder in the figure division. She is the NANBF's 2018 Miss Natural Minnesota, and she is a 25-time marathon runner, her best of which happened after she broke her right leg in 10 places and had 22 pieces of metal put into her leg and recovered from the injury in record time. Her mission is to wake up as many humans as she can on this planet by inspiring people to live their best lives. Kristin, welcome to the show.
Hi, Lawrence. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
You're most welcome. You make me feel like I've achieved very little in my life after reading your bio.
Well, I listened to that list and I think, gosh, who is that person? That sounds a little nuts. But it's proof that, taking these little steps over time, all of a sudden you look back and you've accomplished a lot, which is neat.
Yeah, absolutely. So a bunch of things I'm excited to talk to you about. And as we were kind of discussing before going live, there's something I'm particularly really interested in talking about with you, which is really your relationship with Discover Strength. As you know, a lot of the listeners of this podcast run high-intensity training, personal training studios, and a lot of them are working with or trying to attract people just like you. People who are high-income demographics, lawyers, attorneys, executives, time-starved people who really see a lot of value in abbreviated, intense training. And I'd just love to learn a little bit more about that relationship you have with Discover Strength. So I guess best way to start this, do you want to just go through kind of the before and after story, like what life was like before DS, how you kind of engaged and thereafter?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I went to law school starting in the year 2000. So at the time when I was in law school, I had always been an exerciser. I was an athlete in high school. I prioritized running because that was a big thing for me, and also lifting weights. Now, I didn't know of Discover Strength at the time that I was in law school. And what I would do at that time was to run several days a week, typically 5. And then I was also lifting weights on top of that. So I was doing what I consider to be the old school way of lifting weights. Upper body Monday, lower body Tuesday, upper body Wednesday, lower body Thursday. And I did that routinely, both in college and then in law school. Now, when I started practicing law, I realized I was going to be working a lot. And I thought, there is no way I'm going to have time to do all of this cardio and all of this lifting. Around that same time, one of the girlfriends who I ran with said, hey, I found this gym called Discover Strength. I think it's right up your alley. You should try it. And she said, you're not going to believe it, but it's only a half an hour of a workout once or twice a week. And I think you would really like it. And what was attractive to me was the efficiency of it. And of course, when she told me that, just like when I tell anyone about Discover Strength, I didn't believe her. I said, what do you mean you can work out for only 30 minutes and, see results? So I went to my first workout, and literally, Lawrence, I mean this when I say it, after one workout, I was hooked. And here's why. I had never been pushed that hard in lifting in my life. I was someone who always lifted on my own. So I didn't lift with a friend or a partner. I would have friends at the gym while I was exercising, but I was always doing my own thing. So as you know, anyone who lifts in a way where you are being pushed by a trainer very hard, you can go harder than you ever could on your own. So that was very attractive to me. The other thing was that I felt really good during the workout. I didn't understand any of it now, but I understand that now I was having, dopamine releases and adrenaline and serotonin and all these great hormones. And I really liked that I felt very good and that it only took a half an hour. So I exercised thereafter. I thought I'm going to buy a 10-pack. I'm going to do one workout a week for 10 weeks and see how I feel. And within 6 to 8 weeks of doing that, I started to feel my body change. I started to feel leaner. I started to realize I had more energy. And I thought, okay, I've got to keep this up. So I continued to work out once a week at Discover Strength for nearly a year, probably about 7 or 8 months. And then I upped it to twice a week. And I've been going twice a week ever since. And that was in November of 2007.
That's awesome. So just a couple of things on that. So when your friend, and that's a really interesting thing you mentioned there about how you basically were referred, right? And when your friend told you about this way of training, the DS service, you were obviously highly skeptical, rightly so. So what got you over that hump? Was she like, well, it's free, so you've got nothing to lose? Or was there something else that got you actually through the door?
So 2 things. Great question. One was the fact that it was free. That was huge. And the other thing was I was very attracted to the idea that I could do a full body workout in 30 minutes. That was very attractive to me. I was at a point in my life where I was trying to figure out how to become more efficient, especially with my workouts. So I've now referred hundreds of people to Discover Strength over the years. I have literally sent many, many, many people. Luke and I have talked about this. In fact, in 2012, the Minneapolis St. Paul paper, the Star Tribune, wrote an article about Discover Strength. They've written a number of articles about the gym over the years. But in that article, they interviewed me because at that time, which was 2012, I had referred over 120 clients that had become full-time, long-term clients of Discover Strength. So I mention that because the referral to me was important. And then because I get such a benefit from those workouts and because they're so efficient, I end up referring a lot of people. Word of mouth is one of the best ways to build a business, in my opinion.
This just makes me think that, it's all in the product. Much of the marketing is in the product. If you have a great product and you really work hard to make it stand out, add the value to the right person, a lot of the needs for marketing are going to be obviated in that. As you said,
I totally agree.
Right.
And in fact, I still say my absolute favorite thing about Discover Strength, and I'll tell anyone this and I sing it from the rooftops, is when I go there, I get results. I mean, I didn't set out going there to lift weights to become a professional bodybuilder, but I have been religiously attending Discover Strength workouts for twice a week for this many years. And my muscularity and my anti-aging and the longevity, all of the physical benefits I get from it, you can't deny. So everywhere I travel around this country, people ask me what I do for my workouts because I've gained so much lean muscle tissue over the time. So I tell them it is really important that you lift very heavy, and it's really important that you focus on what you're doing while you're lifting. You don't have to spend hours and hours in the gym. So I think the results and the efficiency, Lawrence, if I could sum it up in 2 things, the results and the efficiency of the workouts are what keep me coming back. And the fact that people treat me well and they're excited to see me and they have great customer service. That's another component.
I just want to dig into that a little bit because that's one of the things I really love about DS is their passion for business and for running a very effective business in terms of not only just providing great workouts and being kind of evangelists for high intensity training and evidence-based exercise, but their attention to the details, their attention to systems, the fact that you walk in, it's the same experience every time in terms of the way they greet you, their attention to detail, their processes, everything. So you just touched on that at the end of what you said there. You said about how the customer service experience is a big part of why you have been a client for 13 years. And I'd just be very curious to know, alongside, if you could maybe elaborate on that. What is it that because you're a former high-powered lawyer, so clearly that stuff, when you see great business practice, that really resonates with you, right? I'm guessing. So, assuming you're in commercial, or I don't know, but just on that, I know I'm dragging out this question, but I'm just really curious. What else really stood out for you? It all stands out for you in your interaction with DS, and things that I think our colleagues in this industry can learn from, really.
Yeah, great question. So, I'd say the primary thing is when I walk in there, or when they communicate with me over email, or when they call me about an appointment, no matter what my interaction is with them, I can tell they actually genuinely care about me. And that matters. So like you said in the intro, I've run 25 marathons. I don't think there is a marathon that I have run since the year 2000. So we're at 20 years of marathoning where Discover Strength has not sent me a good luck card. I get a good luck card from them signed by a bunch of their trainers before every single race. They don't have to do that. They're not training me to run a marathon. They're training me to strength train. And they know that it's important to me and that it's something that matters in my life. So that's one thing. The other thing is when I go there, I'm really intense about my activity and they know that I want to go there and work out. They appropriately, I'd say, ask me questions about what's going on in my life, but they're not sitting there wasting my time. They understand that I'm coming there to strength train. So they're talking to me in between exercises or during an exercise, but they're hyper focused on making sure I get the most out of every exercise so that I'm getting value for the money that I'm paying for my workout. Way before I ever found Discover Strength, I remember hiring a trainer at a big box gym. It was probably twice the cost that I pay for a workout at Discover Strength. It was an hour, and the guy spent half the time shooting the shit with me and not even focusing on the exercise. And I thought, dude, I don't mean disrespect, but I have a lot of friends, okay? I can spend time with my friends and be casual and do coffee talk when I'm not exercising. But when I want to strength train, I want to get in the gym, I want to get my workout done, and I want to get out because I've got a very busy law practice. I probably have 3 phone calls immediately after my workout, and I don't have time to coffee talk at the gym because my life is so demanding. So I can't even list all of the lawyers that I've referred to DS. I can't even list all of the CEOs that I've referred to DS, but I have referred a lot of high-powered executives to that gym because they focus on providing an experience that really speaks to people that want efficiency in their exercise.
This is so inspiring because I live in Galway in Ireland, and I'm actually opening a studio with a friend within 2 to 4 weeks' time. And, I've been talking about the importance of focusing on the product. Get the product ready. Let's not worry about a big marketing launch. Let's just make sure the product is so good that we can start getting referrals as soon as possible in terms of building our client base. And you are just such a testament to that. And it's just absolutely fascinating to hear that. I mean, I must get emails every week from listeners and clients asking me, Lawrence, what is the magic marketing tactic? How do I get people through the door? How do I get leads? And this is the same across many different businesses. And it's you've said it already better than I could ever say, which is just, I think that there needs to be a greater appreciation for the product and the experience and the service. I think some of the trainers have lost sight of that, and maybe they think they've already nailed it, but actually, if they're not getting a lot of referrals, there's an issue there. And
I totally agree with you. Yes, if you're not getting a lot of referrals, I say it's really important to take a long look in the mirror and ask yourself, what am I not providing that clients really need? And maybe what you do is you ask them, how could I make the experience better for you? What more would you want to see in your workouts? What would you like me to do less of? Is there something that you feel like is missing here? I mean, anytime that Luke has asked me any of those questions over the years, I immediately can provide him with really honest feedback. And so I've had great experiences, and he works so hard on ensuring that his customer experience is the best in the business that it's why I continue to refer people, and it's why I've been coming back twice a week for 13 years.
So you've obviously, the business has changed a lot probably since when you first joined. How has that been for you as a client? Because I remember talking to Luke and he said how when they first started DS, he was very focused on marathon runners as their target market. And I'm wondering if that's how they ended up attracting you in a way. But then obviously they kind of started focusing more on the, high-powered executive target market as opposed to just a marathon runner. And so obviously that's just one thing that's changed in the business over the years. I mean, there's many, many changes, but how is that as a customer? How have you found that experience? Has it ever been irritating, that change, or has it always just improved the experience for you, or how has that been?
So truthfully, the experience has always gotten better for me over time. When I started, Luke had his very first Discover Strength location. He had just transitioned from training people out of a high school gym to getting his own location that he was renting. So I was at the very first location. Since that location has moved and he has opened up 5 other locations, 6. I think he's got 6 or 7 now. And so one of the benefits for me is I have the ability to go to all these different locations around the Twin Cities, which is fun. Because even though he's very focused on getting high quality equipment that works well and that is biomechanically correct, there are little variations in some of the equipment. And there are a couple gyms that don't have one machine or that do have one machine. So I like that. I also like that because he's expanded so much, there are all these different trainers for me to get to know and work with. And there's no question that some people just jive with certain trainers more than others. I also like that because there's all of these different locations, the Discover Strength model is you've got a card. So when you go in to have a workout, you have one workout on one side of the card and a different workout on the other side of the card. And you go back and forth between those until that card is full. And then someone writes you new workouts. Well, because I'm going to 6 different locations a lot of the times, I can have that many more workouts going on, which is kind of fun. And I also get the experience of working with all these different trainers. I think one of the things that I respect about the business that Luke has built with Discover Strength is he really spends a lot of time training his trainers on the Discover Strength way. And I think that's one of the secrets to his success. He invests a lot of time both on the front end of ensuring that the people he hires understand the Discover Strength business and the customer experience they're trying to create. But he also spends a lot of time ensuring that his trainers are continuously educated and educating themselves, and he's educating them on how to constantly improve the customer experience and the strength training that is happening. I mean it, Lawrence, when I'm in a workout and I'm on, rep 7 and I maybe have a set that's got to get me 8 to 12. And the trainer is like, I know you can do more. Okay, keep your shoulders back. They are constantly monitoring my form, my technique. They're not letting me slip or fail. They're so dialed into what I'm doing that this goes back to they really care.
Yeah, this has become a great DS promo, but I'm actually really enjoying it.
I honestly, this is probably part of the reason that I end up referring so many people, because when people ask me about my strength training, this is how I talk about DS to the general public, because I believe in it that much. And by the way, and I want everyone to hear this, I pay for every single workout. I don't get stuff for free. I pay for all my workouts, and I have for 13 years. And I think that's important. So people who are listening to this right now understand that I'm passionate about it, and that's my authentic self. That's not me being paid to say any of this. I really care this much.
I appreciate you saying that, being transparent about that. Can you tell us, what do you currently spend monthly on your training, roughly? Is that something that you feel comfortable saying?
Yeah, I'm comfortable saying that. So, unfortunately, I don't have the exact dollars in front of me, but I want to say that to do an auto pay for 2 strength training sessions a week for a month, I want to say I pay about $450.
Mm-hmm.
It's between that. So I pay that a month, and I have that on auto pay. And, to people who go to a gym that costs them $20 or $30, that might sound like extreme sticker shock. but I would much rather invest in somewhere that moves the needle for my fitness, my anti-aging, and my longevity, and makes me more productive in my executive life. Because the reality is I can be at Discover Strength at 5:30 in the morning, be done with my workout at 6 a.m., and be pounding out work and clients at 6:30. Where else can you do that and actually see results? So that's another benefit of it is it really speaks to the high-powered executive who wants to be able to get in, get out, and be efficient. And in fact, just to go back to one of your other questions, Lawrence, that is one of the things that Luke changed that I really liked. I think he used to only be open at 6 a.m. And then he saw that there was this demand for earlier, especially for his high-powered executives. So all of a sudden I realized I could start scheduling at 5:30, and that really helped me. He did the same thing on Sundays. I think Sundays it used to not be open until 8. I just this last Sunday worked out at 7 a.m. because I had to get going on my day and I have a lot of stuff to do. So it's also those kinds of little things for customer service that really help.
Yeah. This is. I just realized that I think Luke and his team could start dicing up this podcast with some great testimonials. it's just packed.
We'll have to let him know. You'll let him know.
Absolutely packed. No, it's great. How much do you think curious, of all the people you refer, I mean, you're clearly quite a very unique individual. Like, how much are you the typical person you might refer, or are you a bit of an outlier? I mean, in terms of your passion for strength training, for instance,
Yeah, that's a really good question. I definitely, I understand because I've talked to Luke about this. I'm pretty confident that of all of their clients, I'm the one who's referred the most people because he and I've had that conversation. But I certainly know that there are people both that I have referred and that I've just met there who are mouthpieces for the business. And that's another thing in terms of building a business like Luke's. Since the word of mouth is so critical, I think, he is wise to observe that I am someone who really cares about that place and who gets a lot out of it. And so he continues to treat me well and does things like has their trainers send the cards before my marathons. They're very focused on the customer service experience. I just a few weeks ago received a thank you card. I get thank you cards with dollars to use at Discover Strength, both for merchandise and for workouts or for shakes or anything else because of my referrals. So I don't do it for that. I mean, I do it because I genuinely care about it, but it is nice to see that they recognize how many referrals I send them and that they take the time to figure out how can we thank her for her referrals over the years. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I know that that there are customer service tips and tricks, I'd say, that they do that keep me feeling appreciated, which also keeps me a satisfied customer.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And I appreciate the answer. So I wanted to, I guess, segue into some of your sort of bodybuilding fitness background for a moment. Let me look at this. So before we get there, you've as you said there, you were doing upper body, lower body splits, training relatively high frequency, potentially high volume per session. You had this, so you were doing that, I'm guessing, and then but at the same time as being introduced to DS, your career started really taking off. You realized that you were struggling to find time for that regime you had. And so but it's still I think interesting to just see, clearly it takes a lot to convince someone like you who was doing that much then going, hey, you know what? You're going to actually only do this once a week for half an hour or twice a week. And I think you said earlier you started off doing once a week.
Yep.
They must have articulated it very effectively to you, or maybe it was more the experience to demonstrate to you, if you work really hard and we take you to muscular failure, then actually it's going to be more productive than the rest. Can you just speak on that a little bit about that transition from your past to, I know you've already talked about this a little bit, but I'd just like to hear a little more on that.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah.
So here's what's funny about that. When I decided to go do my first workout, which is free, I thought, well, I'll try this. What do I have to lose? And I was interested in the fact that it was only a half an hour. The other sell for me at that time was the friend who had told me about Discover Strength was one of the friends that I ran with. And she and I trained together a lot, and we were both marathon runners. And she said, they're really focused on marathon runners, and they train a bunch of people from Team Minnesota, which is, it's elite runners in the state. And so that was attractive to me. I thought, well, if those elite runners are doing it, I should do it. But the truth is, when I did it, I thought, okay, I'll do it. And since it's only a half an hour workout, I'll probably strength train again tomorrow. And then I'll strength train again the next day. I was intending to still continue with my old way because I thought there's no way on earth that this is going to actually move the needle in terms of my fitness. And then what happened was I went and did the strength training session, and I was so exhausted and so sore and so tired, I couldn't do my other strength training. So the method started to work for itself. I think one of the most intelligent things that Discover Strength did in the beginning for me when I did that first workout was that they sold me a 10-pack. And the reason I think that was so valuable is because I remember feeling, and I tell everyone this when I refer them to Discover Strength, I remember feeling the changes in my body somewhere between week 6 and 8. So I guess I share that because if you don't want to lose customers on week 3 or 4, it's incumbent upon you, I think, to get them in on some sort of offering or discount package that is 10 weeks long or 12 weeks long to make sure that they're actually seeing that benefit and that they're seeing those results so that you get them as a customer for life. I mean, I remember at the time, and I don't know whether Discover Strength does this now, but I do remember at the time that Luke offered a very discounted 10-pack for introductory clients. And it was a way that I got in, and that I then started to notice body changes. And I thought, wait a second, now I'm actually addicted to this method. Now I'm going to keep doing this.
That's super interesting because I don't actually think they do that now. I think now, I could be wrong here, and maybe Luke will want to correct me, but I think now they just pitch, group or one-on-one, and they just go straight into auto pay monthly. I think they
that's
sell.
Probably true. They did not have auto pay at the time.
Yeah,
they didn't have auto pay at the time.
And I know that they have data to show that if they can get a client to work out 22, then that client's going to be a client for around 7 years. And so their onboarding is very geared towards how can we get them to work out 22 in terms of, workout experience, proactive retention, email, client education cards, all the great things they do is all geared towards that end goal. And they're very good at measuring their data, which is another thing about them that I really admire. But no, that's interesting because what you said there is different. And I'm just curious why they decided not to continue doing that, then if that was really effective for you. So
yeah, it's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but I know that there are some built-in benefits and discounts with the auto pay. So maybe it became 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, where you're receiving that benefit. But that was attractive to me back at the time. And again, if you think about it, I was in my 20s, and that's when I was focused on. I just started practicing. I still was very money conscious. Now, as a high power executive lawyer, that's less of a concern. So maybe the answer is, as his focus shifted about who his target client was, he knew that wasn't as much of a sell as, that's my guess. I'm guessing that's what he would say if you asked him, which is the benefit we provide now is this auto pay. So we can get this both recurring revenue stream for the business and recurring customer because they've got this on auto pay. So I think that's probably the most likely.
Good answer. So I promised I would segue, and I segued back. Sorry, you were going to say.
Oh, that's okay. Are you kidding? I love talking about this stuff. Like I said before, everywhere I travel, people ask me. So I've said, Luke, I was just in this city and everyone wants to discover strength there. I just spoke at an event in Omaha, Nebraska at a keto summit. And I was on the fitness panel, and people said, wait, what is this gym? And when can I get one in Iowa or Nebraska? So I teased him. I said, I've got a waiting list for you when you're ready, which is neat.
You're the dream. That's amazing.
Yeah. The power of the evangelist customer. I'm very aware.
Yeah. So you have this tremendous marathon record. I know I've never run a marathon. I've run a half marathon a couple times. But to be honest with you, the personal best sounds very impressive, but it's not massively meaningful to me, a non-marathoner. Which is, for those listening, you did it in 3 hours 19, which I do know that is impressive. I'm not that ignorant. I understand that's very good.
Yeah, that's about a 7:35 minute per mile for 26 miles. Yeah.
I think that's better than Luke's best time. Is that right?
No, Luke's beat me. Trust me,
really?
I'm very aware. Luke's ahead of me. Yeah. I think he's run between 3 hours and 3:05. I think he ran a sub 3:05.
Okay. Yeah, I was hoping you'd beat him just to.
So was
I. But you have this really interesting story, where you had this not incredible is the wrong word, disastrous leg break, which sounds really bad. What happened there?
Okay, so, and this is funny because it's going to take me back to Discover Strength, which is funny because you're trying to ask me about my stuff, but it's going to come back to that. So I started lifting at Discover Strength in 2007. I have an ability to gain muscle, and I was very, very fit when this accident happened, and I had run a ton of marathons by then. So the short version is, in December of 2013, so I've already been going to DS for a number of years, I was on a work trip in Williston, North Dakota. It was 25 below zero. I was headed back into the airport to head back to Minneapolis. And I realized after my client dropped me off that I forgot my phone in her car. So I turned around right as I was going into the airport to run back to her car. And between grabbing the back door handle of her vehicle, the ice, and a curb, I fell and I snapped my lower leg tib-fib in 10 places. Now, my orthopedic surgeon who did the surgery and put all of the metal in my leg said if someone paid me $1 million, I couldn't recreate that injury, which is good because I wouldn't want to. But the more interesting part of the story is, and this is another thing that I tell people in terms of how important it is to be strong, especially as we age, I recovered from that injury in record time. I mean, yes, it was devastating to me that I broke bones, and I thought, how can I? I'm one of the strongest women I know. However, that injury allowed me to start exploring nutrition so that I could understand, is my body really absorbing all these amazing nutrients that I'm eating? Are there ways I could be eating better? I want to ensure that I have a really strong bone density as I age. So it set me on this path of nutrition, which has now become my passion and my career. But I had surgery back in Minneapolis after that accident. And I think it was about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks tops. And I was back at Discover Strength lifting.
Wow.
I said to myself, only my right leg is broken. My left leg isn't broken. My abs and back aren't broken. My upper body's not broken. And I, at the time, had never suffered any sort of a break in my body at all. So I was very concerned about what it was going to do to my dopamine levels, my serotonin levels. Oh my God, you can't run for the first time in this many years. What are you going to do? It's the winter in Minnesota. What if you get depressed? What if you become antisocial? I was so afraid of all of those things that I thought, you know what? Discover Strength is the one thing I can still do. And I knew, and this was probably in part because Luke does such a good job educating his consumer base. We would go to weekly, or rather monthly, Discover Strength tip seminars where he spends a half an hour over a lunch break educating us about things. I knew that your limbs have muscle memory between them. So I thought, if I continue to lift for my left leg, which is not broken, my right leg will probably atrophy less. And so that's what I did. And honestly, my physical therapist said, they should write a book about you because the fact that you healed this quickly is unheard of. They told me I wouldn't put any weight on my right leg for 3 months. And I started walking on it after 2 months, and I was running on it again 4 months later. So I attribute that to strength training. And I really focused on it so that I could use that as a part of my method for recovery and rehab.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, ARX. Are you looking to create a cutting-edge, high-intensity training facility? Are you confused on what equipment to use or how to separate yourself from the masses? Well, then ARX Fit might be the answer you're looking for. I asked Mike Polano from ARX a few questions about how ARX machines are challenging the status quo of the exercise industry around the globe. Mike, if you could, Give the listeners a quick summary of why ARX is so different from the traditional machines or tools they're used to seeing in most exercise facilities.
ARX is totally different than anything you've seen before. This isn't just another weight stack machine. We've looked at the last 40 years of exercise technology and used that knowledge to create something entirely new. ARX uses a new form of resistance, a motor, and we pair that motor with computer software so that we can maximize the safety, effectiveness, and efficiency of your workouts. So you may be asking, okay, but how does ARX compare to weights? Traditional machines you see in gyms today are based on lifting metal weights and battling gravity. What people don't realize is that when you're forced to lift a static weight like this, one that doesn't adapt or change while you use it, you're underloading yourself rep after rep. And this unnecessarily limits your ability to make improvements. With ARX, we've taken a totally different approach. We removed weights and gravity from the equation altogether. Instead, ARX combines our patented motorized resistance with our custom computer software to provide you with the world's safest, most effective, and most quantified form of resistance training ever. When you train with ARX, you are training to your perfect level of resistance, both positively and negatively 100% of the time. No more guessing what weight to use. ARX does all of that for you, instantly and automatically. We'll also track and measure every second of every rep, so you can quantify all of your workouts to find out if you're improving and by exactly how much. Whether your goals are bigger muscles, increased strength, stronger bones, or just to look good in a bathing suit, ARX can help you achieve all of these and more, but do so in a fraction of the time it would take compared to traditional equipment. If you're looking for the most efficient, most effective, and most quantified piece of exercise equipment on the market today, then look no further than ARX.
Thanks, Mike. That all sounds really impressive. If you'd like to learn more about ARX, visit arxfit.com and mention that you heard about ARX on the High Intensity Business podcast to receive an exclusive deal of $500 off shipping and installation of your ARX machines.
It's really impressive. So, did you remember the protocol? Like, were you just training the one leg and seeing obviously that some of that adaptation mirror over? What would you remember? Like, how long was it until you started putting load on that other leg, and what exercises do you remember doing?
Yes. So the answer is I was just lifting for my left leg for those 2 months. When I couldn't put any weight on my right leg, I also couldn't weight bear in an exercise like a leg press or anything else. But as soon as they cleared me to walk on it, we were testing things at DS so that I could continue to strengthen it. So I remember it being at least a couple of months, if not longer, where I had to do single leg press separately. And we would slowly increase the weight on my right leg as that strength started to come back. I wish I remembered how many months it was before I could do 2 legs on leg press again. But we laughed and called it my chicken calf on my right leg for a while. And the other thing is, the lap pull down machine where you pull the bar down onto your lap. Because my left quad was still so big and my right quad was so atrophied, I'd pull that bar down and it would hit my left quad and it wouldn't even come close to touching my right leg because it was so soft. I was so mad. But, eventually that stuff all came back. So I would do single leg press. I did single leg separate for extension, for leg extension. Tibia took me a while because that was the bone that was broken. And then some hamstring curl stuff. So the short answer is I just did separate leg exercises for some time until my right leg started to really gain my strength back.
And I guess when you were able to put load on the damaged leg, I'm guessing you weren't going to like muscular failure. You were sort of just using light loads to begin with and sort of working progressively. Is that accurate?
It is accurate. Yes. We were definitely just focusing pretty hard on getting blood flow in there. But, this is just another thing in terms of Discover Strength. We were cooperating, working together where they were helping me with an individualized program for the experience that I had gone through. They weren't going to lose me as a client simply because I broke that leg. And the fact that they cared enough to really work with me was just another thing that kept me coming back, obviously.
Yeah. No, that is super interesting. And then what then? So then you decide to obviously return to marathoning when you could, and that's when you broke your record, right? So was there like a surge of motivation for you to want to kind of prove to the world, look, I broke my leg, but look what I can still do? Is that what happened there?
Yeah. So I'd say it was three things. One thing was I wanted to prove that I could come back better and faster than ever. So I did train very, very hard during 2015 to run that race in the fall of 2015. The other thing, though, was I don't think I could have appreciated before that giving my body a break from marathoning for over a year and a half. Actually, it was 2 years. I had never taken that long of a break. So I think that made a difference. And then third, and I don't want to ignore this component because it's probably the most important for me, is while I was in recovery for my leg, stumbled upon and started practicing the ketogenic diet. So I ran the October 2015 Twin Cities Marathon, which was my PR, in a ketogenic, fat-burning, fat-fueled athlete state as opposed to a carb-fueled athlete. And the short version for your listeners is the night before the marathon, instead of having pasta or carbs or anything like that, I ate a steak with broccoli. And I think I put butter on my steak. And then the morning of the marathon, I had 1 packet of coconut butter, which had 20 grams of fat and only 2 carbohydrates. And I didn't have anything else during the race. No water. I mean, just water. No goose, no other carbohydrates at all. And I felt really, really good. So it was a combination of my diet and kind of getting all of those yucky, sugary carbs out and really training hard and wanting to come back better than ever.
That's interesting. So it's I could be wrong here, but I don't know. I'm not an expert on this, but it's I've heard that when it comes to being a fat adapted endurance athlete, a marathon might be like the maximum time you can go on that type of diet. And I know even Zach Bitter, who's a carnivore guy,
he's a friend of mine.
Oh, cool. So he fuels with, I think with glucose in some way. Because he does these crazy ultra endurance, day long races, right?
50, 100 miles.
So it's a totally different context. So do you think that in that context, one does have to kind of rely on like glucose and that type of thing in order to prevent them from collapsing or bonking?
Yeah, it's
hard?
An interesting question. So what we know from the science is our body can run on glucose for about 2 hours or 2,000 calories. That's how much we can store. And we store that in a combination of our liver and our skeletal muscle. So you expend all of your glycogen at some point. You can run for 40 plus hours on fat. Now, I think because Zach Bitter is an endurance athlete that is really pushing the limits of his body, both in terms of speed and distance, that someone like him, who's really in glycolytic phases, even for the longer endurance, probably needs some of that to fuel. I've talked with him about that. So when he goes really long, he does do some of that glucose rebuilding because he does exhaust all of it. But he fuels primarily with fat. He's a fat-fueled athlete for sure.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I remember hearing, I think there was a paper that came out showing that, we top off our glycogen stores if we eat enough protein, like you're saying there, you had your steak dinner the night before, that you could top off your glycogen stores with that kind of meal, which goes against the grain in terms of excuse the pun, with everyone carbing up with sweet potato and pasta and rice and all this sort of stuff, which could be completely erroneous in terms of like you're providing too much of a surplus.
Correct.
Is what that study shows. Again, not an expert. I'm hearing that. I heard that once. If I were really interested, I would actually dig into the literature more. But does that sound correct to you? I mean, you're obviously more expert than I am on this particular issue. So.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. And the process that you're referring to is called gluconeogenesis, and it's where our body converts that protein to a form of glycogen. So yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Cool. And, one thing that you said earlier, and I think I've understood this correctly, is you were a marathon runner first and you became more of a figure athlete, bodybuilder second. And that came, that was one of the manifestations of joining Discover Strength. You built more lean muscle mass. You had probably the best body composition you've ever had. And so was that a natural kind of byproduct of being there? Or did one of the trainers go, hey, Kristen, you should compete? Like how did that come about?
Yeah. So, it really came about, honestly, that was one of the byproducts of having broken my leg. because people had asked me for years, just out in regular public, do you compete? Are you a fitness competitor? And I said, no, I'm a runner. But I am very aware of the fact that I don't look like the typical marathon runner. I'm not wiry and little and emaciated. I'm muscular. So people had asked me that for years. And then what happened is after I broke my leg and I was strictly focused on strength training, I realized that, wow, I can put on even more lean muscle tissue when I'm not stripping my body with all of this running. Sometimes running can have that other effect. So now I've figured out a system where I can run marathons and do bodybuilding competitions and do well at both. But I didn't appreciate up until breaking my leg and not being able to run for so long, how much of a benefit I could receive in terms of retaining lean muscle that I wasn't wasting, during my running activities. So it was really the leg break that catapulted me into this strength training or into the bodybuilding. And then the other thing was in the fall of, it must have been 2016, I had just come off having run that amazing PR marathon in 2015. And the sign up for Boston, I thought, oh, good, now I'll run Boston again in the spring of 2017 because you have to sign up in September of 2016. And for the first time ever, I forgot to put it in my calendar. And by the time I remembered, the Boston Marathon was already full. So I thought, okay, I need to do something else in April of 2017 because otherwise I'm going to sit home and cry that I'm not out running the Boston Marathon when I was very qualified for it. So that's why I signed up for my first bodybuilding competition.
So
and it was in April of 2017. Yeah, to take my mind off the Boston Marathon. Yep.
You had to have an alternative goal to focus on. Jesus, you're super type A, aren't you? Yeah.
That's guilty.
It's cool. And so obviously the ketogenic diet kind of worked hand in hand with the training at DS to help you optimize your body composition, I assume.
It did. And right now, because of World Carnivore Month, I'm doing a carnivore experiment where I'm just doing meat for 30 days. But I typically do carb cycle. I've just found that tends to work best for me, especially for women. I've noticed hormonally that seems to work well. But I'm really excited about this carnivore experiment because I'm on day 4 and I feel amazing.
So tell me about that. What are you eating for? I eat kind of a carnivore-ish diet, not a total carnivore diet, but something similar. So tell me what exactly are you eating so far?
So I typically am doing, I tend to fast most mornings where I'm just doing heavy cream, MCT oil, and ghee in my coffee. And then the first thing I'll eat is typically a couple of eggs. I do eat bacon. I had a ribeye the other night for dinner. I ate all 11 ounces in one sitting. Thank you very much. I had a New York strip for dinner. I eat ground beef. I actually last night cooked, and I'm going to have today. One of my girlfriend's husbands shot and killed a moose out west this last year. So I'm going to eat moose today, which is actually a very lean meat. So I'm going to have to add ghee or beef tallow or something to it. I actually really like chicken breakfast sausage. There's a Whole Foods brand, 365, that I like. It's really high protein. It doesn't have a lot of fat. So I have to add more fat to it. So New York strip, ribeye, ground beef, moose, chicken sausage, eggs. Oh, chicken thigh. I love chicken thigh. And I tell everyone, especially because of my nutritional training, chicken thigh is one of the best meats for muscle building because it's got one of the highest percentages of leucine of any meat. And leucine is obviously great for muscle building. So I tell people to focus on chicken thigh when they can.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's really interesting. So how do you, because I know that there's this kind of debate going on in the carnivore world or keto world about trying to get that protein fat ratio. What have you found works best for you?
So what I have found, and I actually tested my ketones this morning before I went to the gym, and I was not in ketosis, which surprised me after 3 days of carnivore where I literally have had like less than 20.
I saw that protein. Oh, sorry, go on. Sorry.
That's what I'm thinking. So that's why I'm trying to figure out that balance for me. When I look at, because I track all my food. So when I look at the, if you think of the circle, I want 75% of it to be in red and 25% of it in green. So that's 75% of that is fat and then 25% is green. So I weigh about 130 pounds. I'm typically having about 130 to 140 grams of protein a day. And maybe that amount kicks me out of ketosis some days, but I'll test again because I haven't had any protein yet today. And I'm guessing that I'm back in ketosis now just because I've been fasting all morning and I've already worked out and only had coffee.
I know you did mention this just now, but just to clarify then, so you're having some kind of like butter coffee in the morning, and then is it 2 main meals you have after that, like a lunch and dinner, and that's it? Is that accurate?
It is. Now,
Yeah.
I would say yesterday, for example, when I'm fasting in the morning and my first meal is meat, I typically then will have like 2 hard-boiled eggs midday. So I'm usually eating in a 5 to 6 hour window. Sometimes my eating window is as long as 8 hours, but I'm usually eating somewhere between noon or 1 and about 6 or 7.
Cool. Yeah, I do pretty much, well, very similar. In fact, I was thinking last night, I'd love to have I know we shouldn't say necessarily bulletproof coffee because, you can have you can have butter in your coffee without calling it bulletproof, but it's just, I guess Dave was the one who really kind of put that on the map.
Yep.
And, I was like, I really want one of those tomorrow. And we've just had a newborn baby and he's almost 6 weeks old. And we've got this tiny apartment we're staying in right now. And the blender is going to drive him absolutely crazy. And so I'm going to have to put that on hold for a while until the environment makes it a bit more permissive.
Oh, yeah. That's so funny. Well, here's what I would suggest to you. And I'm going to grab my computer just so I can show you.
A life hack,
yeah,
is it?
I'm going to show you this little hack because I was just at Keto Summit last weekend and one of my guy friends had this. This is what I use. It's the Zule. It's just a little hand blender.
Oh, yeah.
So I take this out of here and this goes in my coffee and it's tiny and look how quiet that is. So I use that to make in my coffee. And then you can also take that on the go and travel and you don't have to turn on the blender or the Vitamix and make it this big production. You can do it a lot more efficiently.
Yeah,
efficiency. I'm all about efficiency.
Yeah, I thank you for that. Yeah, no, that's great. I'm definitely going to look into that because I just had a real craving for it.
Yeah, Zulay.
Great. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Also, I want to talk about your services. And firstly, you've made this huge transition. Lawyer, high-powered lawyer. You've obviously had a lot of success, been featured in publications and top 20, top 25 lawyers in Minnesota or something like that. Sorry if I got that slightly wrong.
Yeah, top 50. That's okay.
Top 50,
That's okay.
yeah. And so, clearly you had a very successful career there. So why the shift? Why the change?
Yeah, great question. So I've shared this story a number of times, and what I tell everyone is a few years ago, I started meditating, finally. And this has been a spiritual calling for me. So I'm being guided to do this work. I was being guided to leave the practice of law. And I don't know how to describe it other than that. I'm being led by my higher self. And for people that meditate, they understand that. For people that don't, I encourage them to open up to it. We all have a higher self that is waiting for us to connect with it so that we can be guided and co-create our world. I was noticing things like little frustrations that were happening when I was lawyering. Like, I wanted to start life coaching my clients more so than lawyering them because I thought if I could just help you to get out of your own way, you wouldn't be sued again. Or if I could help you understand that this really doesn't matter in the big scheme of the world, you could actually resolve this case and forgive this person. So those kinds of things started to happen for me. And I thought, boy, maybe it's time to start doing something else. I loved it while I did it. I loved the battle of winning and losing. And I love trying cases in front of people. And I think because of my meditation work, I just started to evolve out of it. I evolved out of the fighting all day. Because I was a trial lawyer, everything I did was measured on wins and losses. And so I just have shifted in terms of who I am as a person. And I really think that because of the success I've had professionally and personally, especially understanding all this nutrition stuff, that I'm being called to serve in a different way. So that's really how I figured it out.
Wow. So I'm really ignorant about everything to do with law. But so you're one of those really cool kind of lawyers who actually stands up in court and will defend or, prosecute whoever.
Exactly.
Like
yes.
in the movies.
So I would do, like in the movies. So I would do the cases that I worked on were civil disputes, so business stuff. So business owners who are fighting with each other, contract disputes, a lot of real estate issues. So I would actually argue, I would give my opening statement, I would convince the jury of things, I would answer the judge's questions. So I was in court all the time. Yeah, the only thing I didn't do in terms of that work is I didn't do any criminal stuff. So I didn't have to put away criminals or defend them, which is good.
Cool. Yeah. No, it's interesting because you're a very strong communicator, and that's definitely evident during this podcast. And clearly, your time in law has really served you well in terms of your communication skills and stuff like that.
Thank you. It's one of the things with this new business that I really intend to do and that I really would love to do is to do more speaking, both around the country and the world. So I have had a number of speaking engagements over the last year. I have one on Saturday. I have one next Tuesday. I'm really intending to build that piece of the business because I feel like 16 plus years of lawyering has prepared me to be able to take these complex nutritional concepts, break them down, and make them digestible for people to understand.
Yeah, and congratulations also for making the jump. It's very scary for a lot of people, and that's why most people don't do it, unfortunately. If you're comfortable, would you be able to talk about how you've managed to do it financially? I don't mean specifically like telling us how much you're making or anything like that, but more, it's difficult. That's one of the main challenges, isn't it? People have these careers, in some cases like you, high-powered, high-income careers, and they worry about losing that income. And I guess an obvious answer is, well, then you start it as a side hustle and then you transition over when you can afford to, but even then, it seems to a lot of people, it seems like it's too hard to do that, or it will never really happen. How have you managed that yourself in terms of moving away from that and doing, what you're doing now full time?
Yeah, great question. So I agree that it's too difficult to do it as a side hustle and build it while you're doing something else. Now, I do know that a lot of people do that successfully, but I don't know if you've ever read the book, The One Thing, but you really need to have that one thing. Yes. And so for me, I was interested in doing this. I started my entity. I thought I'll do them at the same time. And it just became, I really wanted to divert my energy to one thing. So I made the decision because I truly trust that the universe will always take care of me. And I believe that if all of us really get in touch with what is my divine purpose and why am I here? What am I being called to do? And we follow that, you will be taken care of financially always. I believe that. So I also knew that this business will take time to build. So when I left the law firm in June, I had some money saved. I met with my financial advisors to help. They are giving me an allowance. I was an owner of my firm, so I'm getting paid a little bit over time, which helps me with the ramp up. And then I immediately started serving. One of the business coaches that I hired gave me the best pieces of advice. And she said to me it was last summer, I think it was July, when I was complaining to her that I wasn't really, my website wasn't done and I'm all stressed out about it. And she looked at me and she goes, and we were on a Zoom call, and she said, no one cares about your fucking website. Stop worrying about your website. You need to be in your gift and you need to start serving. And for whatever reason, Lawrence, that it gave me some sort of opening. It allowed me to say, oh my God, you're right. All of the perfectionism around what everything looks like isn't actually what matters. What matters is starting to serve clients and be in your gift. So she gave me that permission, I'd say, and it opened stuff up and clients just started knocking down my door. I actually still don't have my website done. It's in process, but I've been getting all sorts of word of mouth clients because I'm actually focused on providing client service. And so that's what's built my business rather than worrying about how pretty or not pretty my website is right now. It will be launched soon and I will have it done, but I thought that was very good advice, which is start serving and start building your brand in terms of word of mouth advertising because you're actually giving people results. One of the couples that hired me, I serve a lot of couples, which is amazing. He went from 37% body fat down to 19% body fat, gained 20 pounds of muscle. They hired me for a 6-month contract and they've transformed their lives and their marriage and they're just so happy now. It's just really neat to see.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's great advice from your coach there. I think quite a lot of the time, a big part of a coach's role, and I have a coach, is really just to give us permission to do stuff we already think is the right thing to do, which is so silly because it's sometimes it's so obvious, but we just need someone to say, yeah, you go do that. It's okay.
Exactly. I was like, she helps me get out of my own way, you know?
Yeah. So this is probably a good time to talk about your service then. So what do you want to talk about, what the service is, how people can find out more about it and that kind of thing?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I'm providing services in a couple different ways. One is where I am coming and speaking to groups. So I love to speak. As you indicated before, communication is one of my gifts. And so I really like to be able to communicate. Most importantly, to take these, I think that the world of nutrition and fitness is so overcomplicated in our society. People are so overwhelmed because they don't know what to trust, who to trust, what to believe, what to do. And they just feel so inundated that they don't do anything. So I come and speak to groups, to companies, to organizations, and I try to break things down very simply. I'm going to be doing that on Saturday, for example. That's one of my services. The other primary service is the one-on-one nutritional coaching and lifestyle coaching, really. So I don't do any one-on-one work that is for a period of time that's shorter than 3 months. I believe in order to create transformational change, people have to commit to me for somewhere between 3 and 6 months. I prefer 6, but 3 will work too. And then what I'm doing is I'm creating meal plans that are designed specifically with their particular macronutrients that they need in order to gain lean muscle tissue and reduce body fat. I also am saying, and I try to get all of my clients to work out at Discover Strength, but for those that don't, and they have another gym that they have a relationship with, I tell them, here's then the classes I want you to do, or here's what I want you to tell your trainer. I'm personally not myself a personal trainer, so I'm never going to tell anyone you have to do this many bicep curls with this amount of weight. That's not what I do. But I do say, here's what you need to consume for macronutrients this week in these quantities. And here are the workouts I also want you to do. So they follow a very strict plan from me that allows them to take the guesswork out of it. You know, I'm telling them, here's the workouts to do and here's how to eat. And I promise you that if you follow this, you're going to create transformational change in your body and your mind and your spirit. And they do. They do.
Awesome. That's really interesting. So where do people go to find out more about that? What's the website or the email or the phone number or whatever you want to share?
Sure. So my website, which I promise will be launched soon, is called energeticallyefficient.com. But I'm probably most active on social media on Instagram, which my Instagram handle is MN for Minnesota. So MN Golden Girl. That's my Instagram handle. I have only just, and this is so embarrassing because it's been around for 15, 20 years now. I just got a Facebook page in November. Big girl. I'm finally on Facebook, but I haven't really figured out how to use it much yet. So I'm not spending much time on Facebook. My big social media platforms right now are Instagram and LinkedIn. So people can find me on LinkedIn by just searching my name, Kristin, Kristin, Rowell, Rowell. And those are the best places to find me. I will just make one plug, Lawrence. I am going to be launching my first mid-February. So I'll have some announcements about that out on my website.
You broke up a little bit then. Did you say online course?
Yes, I'm going to be doing my first online course in mid-February. And so what that's going to take people through is if they're interested in the low-carb ketogenic lifestyle, it's going to be between 6 and 8 weeks of modules so that they can learn. I'm going to do a grocery store tour. I'm also going to help them understand what to order at restaurants, help them understand how to prepare meals that are less than 10 minutes. One of the things that I try to make sure that people understand is that we make things way more complicated than they need to be. And as a high-performing, stressed-out trial lawyer, I was billing my time in 6-minute increments. So I had to be very efficient about how I ate and how I meal prepped. So I have this dialed down to a science, and I'll share that in my course.
Very cool. Super interesting. That sounds exciting. So coming towards the end of this now, Kristin, and I just want to check if there's anything else you want to cover off here. Really enjoyed talking to you. This has been a lot of fun and really interesting. Is there anything else you want to mention? Any kind of parting words, parting thoughts, experiences you've had, whether it's strength training? So I guess parting words that would be helpful, I'm thinking, would be anything that you think the business owner, the personal trainer listening to this might find valuable, or the person who's interested in making a big transformation in terms of their diet or training for their own health goals, or both.
Yeah. So I can do both. So for the personal trainer, business owner who's really trying to grow their business, I would say the number one thing they can focus on is results. And the number 2 thing they should focus on is the customer experience. You can have the best customer service in the world, but if your clients don't see results, from what you are taking them through in training sessions, you're going to lose them as clients. I have built a huge amount of people to follow me in terms of what I do for workouts and what I do for food because I help people get results. The same is true for the business owner who's running a gym. Your clients need to get results first. The customer service can come hand in hand with that, but that follows the results. And then for the individual, I'd say the three biggest takeaways I want people to remember is strength training is the number one thing you can do for your physicality. It has a cardiovascular benefit. It wards off aging. It makes you feel good. It makes you look good. If I could do only one workout every week, Discover Strength is the one thing I wouldn't give up because strength training is that important to me. So that's one. Two is I want people to substantially try and reduce their carbohydrates. I think that the world consumes way more carbohydrates than are necessary. So I ask people to think about that. And then the third thing is I try to make sure that all of my clients stay hydrated. There's a lot of anxiety and stress in the world that is caused by dehydration. And so I encourage people to really get intentional about how much water they consume and add some salt to it. Electrolytes are good for us.
Awesome. Some good advice there. And you've already dropped your details, which I appreciate, places people can find you. And also, for everyone listening to this, if you are a high-intensity training business owner or looking to become one and grow a successful high-intensity training business, please consider joining HIT Business Membership, where we have an online HIT Business community, exclusive HIT Business blueprints and resources from people like individuals like Luke Carlson and Hannah, who's the head of marketing and sales at Discover Strength, and Paddy Durrell over at Rock Solid Fitness, and many others. Monthly Q&As with HIT business experts and exercise scientists, and private one-on-one forum-based coaching from myself. That is what you will get in the HIT Business membership, and you can get that over at highintensitybusiness.com/membership. And to find the blog post for this episode and download a juicy PDF, please go to highintensitybusiness.com and search for episode 278. And until next time, guys, thank you very much for listening.
Discover how to achieve your health and fitness goals, become a great personal trainer, and build a successful high-intensity training business. Check out highintensitybusiness.com. highintensitybusiness.com.
This episode is brought to you by ARX, the most innovative, efficient, and effective all-in-one exercise machines I have ever seen. I was really impressed with my ARX workout. The intensity and adaptive resistance was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I love how the machine enables you to increase the negative load to fatigue target muscles more quickly, and I love how the workouts are effortlessly quantified. The software tracks maximum force output, rate of work, total amount of work done, and more in front of you on screen, allowing you to compete with your previous performance to give you and your clients real-time motivation. The ARX uses a computer-controlled motor to give you the exact amount of resistance your clients need 100% of the time. This means that the resistance can never become dangerous, is intuitive and simple to use, and can provide you with all of the results you and your clients are looking for in a fraction of the time. ARX is highly effective and efficient in delivering all of the benefits of exercise, including increased strength, muscle mass, cardiovascular conditioning, bone mineral density, and injury recovery. As well as being utilized by many high-intensity trainers to deliver highly effective and efficient workouts to their clients, ARX comes highly recommended by world-class trainers and brands, including Bulletproof, Tony Robbins, and Ben Greenfield Fitness. To find out more about ARX and get $500 off install when you place an order, please go to arxfit.com and mention HIB, that's High Intensity Business, in the How Did You Hear About Us field. So again, to get $500 off install when you place an order, head on over to arxfit.com and enter HIB in the How Did You Hear About Us field.